Jeremie Frimpong looks like he could be the first signing to arrive at Anfield this summer, and with that news, a wave of questions has started to roll in. What kind of player is he exactly? Is he the right profile to take over from Trent Alexander-Arnold? And maybe the biggest question of all, how would he fit into Arne Slot's system, especially considering he's not your traditional right back? Well, you're in luck, because in today's video, we're going to break it all down. Think of this as a scouting report and a bit of future gazing into what Arne Slot might be planning for next season. And by the way, we had to go back in time to the 2022 to 2023 season to answer that last question. So if you haven't already, hit that like button, make sure to subscribe, and let's get straight into it. Let's kick things off by breaking down the kind of player Jeremie Frimpong really is. This should help clear up any doubts about his style and what exactly he brings to the table. So Frimpong is a right-footed right back. Now, to be fair, he's basically played more like a winger for Bayer Leverkusen, especially since Xabi Alonso uses a back three system that pushes the wing-backs high up the pitch. But we doubt Arne Slot is going to go with that same setup at Liverpool next season. So for now, we're going to focus on how Frimpong fits in as a more traditional right back. He's 24 years old, so he's right in the middle of his peak years. But he stands at just 5 feet 8 inches, and it's safe to say he's not getting any taller. That being said, what he lacks in height, he more than makes up for in speed. Frimpong is easily one of the fastest players in the world right now. Whether it's over short bursts or long distances, with or without the ball, it's almost impossible for anyone to catch him once he shifts into top gear. And it's not just about raw speed. Frimpong is incredibly agile too. He has the kind of close control that lets him dance through tight spaces and change direction quickly when driving forward. Just take a look at this radar chart from the brilliant Sahil Gidwani. It highlights how dangerous Frimpong is when it comes to ball progression and dribbling. The green sections represent his carrying stats, dribble success rate, and the number of progressive passes he receives. And he ranks in the top percentiles across the board. Now, keep those three traits in mind: speed, agility, and off-ball movement. They're going to be key in understanding how Arne Slot might choose to use Frimpong next season. Now, obviously, with his height and lean frame, Frimpong isn't the most physically dominant player out there. It's fair to say he lacks a bit of robustness and might struggle in physical battles, and that totally makes sense. But here's the thing. Is it really as bad as people are making it out to be? Is he actually easy to bully on the pitch? Well, the numbers suggest otherwise. Yes, his success rate in defensive and aerial duels is below average, but here's the twist. His numbers are still better than Trent Alexander-Arnold's in those same areas. So, if Trent has managed to hold his own in that position all these years, why can't Frimpong? It's not ideal, sure, but it's probably not the massive weakness some fans are worried about either. Now, going back to that radar chart we mentioned earlier, you can clearly see how highly Frimpong ranks in attacking and creative metrics. So far in the Bundesliga, he's scored 5 goals and provided another 5 assists. Of course, a big reason for those stats is the way Xabi Alonso has been using him at Leverkusen. As a wingback in a system that gives him loads of freedom to push forward, Frimpong has had the license to attack almost like a winger. That role has allowed him to get into dangerous areas and contribute heavily in the final third. Now, while his creative numbers are impressive, averaging 0.65 key passes per 90 minutes, you'll also notice that his ranking drops when it comes to progressive passes. This is where we'll really feel the difference with Trent potentially stepping out of the role. Frimpong simply doesn't have the ability to ping long balls from deep into dangerous areas. He doesn't possess that kind of passing range, but to be fair, that's not his game. He's not that type of player to begin with. So now that we've got a clear picture of what Frimpong brings to the table, let's move on to our next question. Is he the right profile to replace Trent? Well, you can look at this from a few different angles, but here at Panenka FC, we'd actually prefer not to frame Frimpong as a direct replacement for Trent at all. Let's be real, guys. Whether you still back him or not, Trent is a generational talent. He's a game breaker, the kind of player who can completely change a match with just one pass. And when you have someone like that, it's only natural that finding an exact replacement is going to be nearly impossible. That's why we believe Frimpong shouldn't come in carrying the burden of being Trent's heir. He's simply not the same player, and that's okay. He's got a totally different profile and strengths of his own. So if Frimpong and Trent are completely completely different players, does that mean Arne Slot will have to tweak his system to suit his new right back? That's the big question we've been asking ourselves ever since Frimpong was first linked with Liverpool. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that we were originally against the idea of this deal. And not because Frimpong isn't a quality player, he clearly is, but more because we just couldn't figure out how he would fit into the system we've been building. But here's the thing, after watching more of Frimpong and looking closely at some of the recent changes in our playing style, we've started to notice something. We think we're beginning to see at least one way Frimpong could be used effectively under Slot. So hang tight, because we're about to walk you through what we discovered. In the matches against Chelsea and Arsenal, we noticed something new in our build-up play. It looked a lot more patient than usual, especially against teams that press high. Earlier in the season, our go-to move was to go long almost immediately whenever the opposition pressed aggressively. But in these more recent games, that wasn't the case. Let us show you an example. Against Arsenal, you can see our centre-backs dropping deeper and splitting out wide on either side of Alisson. At the same time, our double pivot players stayed central but were constantly on the move. The idea behind this setup is pretty clear. It's meant to stretch the pitch and increase the pressing distance Arsenal's players have to cover. By doing that, we make it harder for them to press as a unit. On top of that, it gives us numerical superiority in the deep build-up phase, making it easier to play out from the back under pressure. But that's not all. The constant off-ball movement from the double pivot players isn't just about opening up new passing lanes. It's also designed to drag markers out of position and create confusion for the opposition. Take this moment as an example. You can see Odegaard tracking Curtis Jones, while Saka drops deeper to cover the passing lane to Robertson. But as soon as Van Dijk plays the ball into Jones, watch how quickly Saka rushes forward to press him. That sudden shift creates a moment of chaos, and it's exactly what this movement is meant to cause. This is where the art comes in. By intentionally inviting central pressure through the centre-back and one of the double pivot players, you end up creating space somewhere else on the pitch. In this case, with Luis Diaz dropping deep and pinning Arsenal's right back inside, a pocket of free space opened up on the left for Andrew Robertson. After we managed to retain the ball under pressure and link up with Gravenberch, Robertson was able to run into that space and use it to progress the play. Now, you might be thinking this was just a one-off sequence, so why are we making such a big deal out of it? And more importantly, what does any of this have to do with Frimpong's? Well, hang on a second, we're getting there. We actually went back in time, specifically to the 2022 to 2023 season, when Arne Slot was still managing Feyenoord. And in a Europa League match against Shakhtar Donetsk, we noticed something very familiar taking place. Here, you can see Feyenoord's centre-backs splitting on either side of the goalkeeper, again to increase the pressing distance for the opposition players. Meanwhile, one of the pivot players moved into the central area, inviting pressure through the middle. Just like our sequence against Arsenal, this drew the press toward the ball carrier while opening up space for the left back. And once again, after a quick combination with the pivot player, and with the winger pinning the opposition fullback deep, Feyenoord's left back was found in a lot of space. That gave them the opportunity to progress the ball with ease. These are two almost identical sequences, separated by a couple of years, but both happened under Arne Slot's watch. And as we all know, Slot is a manager who loves to maximize the strengths of his players. This strategy of inviting central pressure to create space out wide might just be the perfect way to get the best out of someone like Frimpong. Now imagine Frimpong receiving the ball in that open space, using the electric ball carrying ability we talked about earlier to drive the team forward. Teams won't even know what hit them. Of course, to make this work, we'll need to bring in a few more players during the summer window. Sure, Curtis Jones brings some excellent press resistance in the deep build-up phase, but he doesn't have the passing range to get us out of tight spots when needed. That's where someone like Adam Wharton comes in. He's incredibly press resistant and has the kind of passing vision that could be crucial in this setup. A player like him might be a must-buy this summer. Now, just to be clear, this approach we've been talking about won't be the only way Slot uses Frimpong. We already know how much our no manager values runs from deep and movement in behind, and Frimpong can offer plenty of that as well. If Salah stays wide to receive and create, Frimpong can provide those intense, untouchable underlapping runs, similar to the ones we've seen from Szoboszlai, like the one that led to his assist for Diaz against Arsenal. And if Salah drifts inside, Frimpong can overlap instead, offering creativity from wide areas by swinging in crosses or linking up with others in the final third. Again guys, we'll be honest, we were kind of against this deal at first, mainly because we couldn't quite see how Frimpong would fit into the team. But the more you watch him, the more you look at how we've been playing recently, and especially when you revisit how Feyenoord played under Slot, it starts to make a lot more sense. A player like Frimpong could actually be a huge asset for us. But of course that brings up one more big question. If we go out and sign Frimpong for the right side, does that mean we won't be targeting someone like Milos Kerkez for the left? Because let's be honest, those two are quite similar in profile, and having two fullbacks constantly flying forward could easily turn our games into end-to-end basketball matches. Maybe the real question now is, should we actually be looking for a more defensive left-back instead? So yeah, that's our breakdown of how Jeremie Frimpong could actually fit into Arne Slot's system. We know there's still a lot of unknowns, and things can change depending on what business we do this summer, but from what we've seen so far, this move might not be as crazy as it first looked. But what do you guys think? Do you see Frimpong working in our system under Slot? And if we do get him, should we go for a more defensive left back to balance things out? Drop your thoughts in the comments, we'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll catch you in the next one.